Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're cracking open a truly fascinating, incredibly abstract text that kind of completely flips our everyday understanding of reality. Normally, we think of physical space as this fixed, unchangeable container that we just happen to walk around inside of. But the metaphysical framework we're looking at today, it argues the exact opposite. It frames physical space not as a rigid reality, but as a completely malleable illusion. And get this, it's an illusion entirely controlled by human consciousness. We're going to unpack exactly how this text claims you can manipulate, compress, and even completely transcend the space around you. To really grasp how radical this idea is, there's a fantastic quote from the text. Bosom friends within the four seas are close neighbors, though separated by great distance. The author is actually using a brilliant modern analogy to prove that space is totally subjective. Think about the internet. Before the internet, someone across the globe was literally worlds away. Now, through a connection, that massive remote distance just vanishes, and they're right there with us. The text takes this everyday experience to argue that distance and space aren't absolute, fixed mathematical constants. They change. They're entirely dependent on perception, on the materials involved, and most importantly, on our minds.
So here is the roadmap for navigating this metaphysical toolkit. We'll be going step by step to see exactly how this philosophy claims we can manipulate reality. We're going to cover the power of consciousness, surmounting space, compressing and expanding space, changing your space, and finally, understanding human existence. Let's dive right in. All right, part 1. The power of consciousness, where mind meets space.
To use absolutely any of the tools in this manual, we first have to establish its foundational premise, which is that the mind dictates the physical realm. And that brings us to a really key concept, telegnosis. The text defines this as our consciousness or our spiritual perception, but it's not just about what you're casually thinking about right now. According to this framework, the specific spaces our minds can actively perceive today are exactly the spaces where our spiritual life is destined to end up after the death of the flesh body. Essentially, when you focus your consciousness literally builds the track for your ultimate destination.
Let's lay out the absolute ground rules governing this whole system. The text inextricably links physical matter, consciousness, and the very existence of space. It argues that space changes based on life consciousness. But I want you to consider this last point, because it is a massive philosophical leap. It says, if consciousness does not exist, space does not exist. So space isn't just an empty room waiting for us to enter it. Without our minds to perceive it, that room simply isn't there.
Moving on to Section 2. Surmounting space, transcending the present.
Okay, so this is our very first actionable tool for dealing with the space we currently inhabit. The text tells us that what we see with our physical eyes is where we're currently heading. But to surmount our current existence, we have to look way past it, and this required spiritual journey is broken down chronologically. Step 1, you must deliberately extend your thoughts to what the text calls senior spaces. These are realms like the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Elysium world. Then, step 2 requires you to actively imagine and know these situations. You reinforce your beliefs so your whole mentality evolves towards them. And if you persist, step 3 kicks in. The space in your imagination will literally move toward you. Visualizing these senior spaces lays the absolutely crucial foundation for your spiritual body to enter them in the afterlife. Which brings us to Section 3, compressing and expanding space, the mind's elasticity. When dealing with how we can actively push and pull our environments, the text poses a really direct, seemingly impossible question. Can space be compressed? And the definitive answer it gives is yes, absolutely.
Now, what's incredibly interesting here is how the text perfectly juxtaposes two totally opposing mental mechanisms. Compressing space isn't about physical gravity, right? It's about strengthening your perception of a desired space. The deeper your perception gets, the narrower the distance becomes, until your consciousness fully integrates with it. Expanding space is the exact opposite. It is the deliberate, gradual detachment from spaces you do not like. You basically keep those undesired spaces out of your consciousness until they expand away and completely disappear. It's this active pursuit of the celestial world placed right up against the deliberate rejection of worldly constraints.
And this brilliantly illustrates the dual nature of this toolkit. Escaping the mortal world requires mastering both of these actions at the exact same time. You have to expand your space to escape the worldly life and all its constraints, while simultaneously compressing the space between yourself and the celestial space to enter the celestial world. Basically, you got to push away the mundane to pull in the divine.
All right, Section 4, changing your space, taking control.
We're shifting focus a bit now to the immediate, highly practical advice the text offers for dealing with our current day-to-day environments. And the crucial point here is this incredibly stark warning straight from the text. If we don't change the space will change us. It's a super urgent call for proactive action. You really cannot afford to just passively sit around waiting for your environment to improve on its own.
But why exactly do we need to take such forceful action? Well, the text lays out 3 highly pragmatic reasons. If your current environment constrains your freedom, if it prevents you from utilizing your actual competency, or if it actively puts you at risk of harm, you must find a way to change it. Mastering space isn't just some abstract preparation for the afterlife. It's about self-preservation and unlocking your true potential in the here and now.
And that leads us to our final part, Section 5, Understanding Human Existence, the Ultimate Target. This part reveals the overarching target behind learning all of these spatial manipulations in the first place. The text insists that you can't just go around randomly compressing and expanding spaces without a compass, right? To use this metaphysical toolkit effectively, you need direction. You can only realize your ideal step by step if you first set your target. And to do that, you have to uncover some deep underlying truths. We have to understand the origin of humans, the specific function of humans, and ultimately grasp the true meaning of life itself. Without these prerequisites, the tools are completely useless. Which leaves us staring down one massive, profound question. If mastering the fabric of reality around us absolutely requires knowing our true origin and purpose, what exactly is the meaning of human life? Well, the author notes that to find that out, we have to explore their subsequent chapters on humans and life. But for now, take a look around the room you're sitting in right now. Ask yourself, is this space serving you or is it changing you? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this gives you a totally new perspective on the spaces we inhabit.